Hello, and welcome to MBAO 201, MainView AutoOperator Advanced Facilities. This is Part 3. MBAO 201 is the fourth in an 8-part series of courses covering MainView AutoOperator. In addition to message rules, AutoOperator supports a multitude of different types of events. We have command events, alert events, we have alarm events from MainView Alarm Manager, we have variable events, we can start events based on time, we can capture external events via subsystem, we can capture multi-line WTOs, we can capture end of step, end of memory, and then a time limit for your jobs. So let's take a closer look at command rules. And command rules are typically used to reject MVS commands, meaning you may not want to let a TSO user cancel jobs. We can reject those if you'd like, or what you may want to do is change the command into something else. So you can build prefixes for your commands. And in this example, instead of typing a V space net comma act, we can abbreviate a VA, have a rule out there to intercept the VA command, and then translate it to the very net active. When we create a command rule, this is the first screen that we're going to see. And note that in the job name field, I'd specified counsel. It's important that you only specify counsel when the command is being issued from a legitimate counsel, not from the SDSF log. In the command rule action specifications panel, we can tell AutoOperator how we want to handle this event. The first field is reject command, and typically you're going to set that to yes because the command that's being issued is not the command that you want processed by the system. So in this case, we're going to say reject command yes, but we also want to write the command to the journal, which is the AO journal or log. In this case, instead of running the command, what we're going to do is we're going to invoke an exec RDC GXR38, and we're going to pass it the second word of the command. And that's going to be issued instead of the original VA command that we had seen on the previous display. Now let's talk about alert initiated rules. And the first thing you may want to ask is, why would I want to create a rule to fire off of an alert? Well, alerts are created by a few different sources. They come in through MainView Alarm Manager, which is out there in the MainView environment monitoring various metrics in the operating system. MainView for ZOS has a facility called Advanced Early Warning that generates alerts that you may want to capture. CICS, IMS, and DB2 have some monitors that can run in the background and generate alerts as well. So if any of these sources generate an alert, you may want to take some additional automated response, and then we can create a rule to do that for you. If we specify an alert event, then what we're going to get is a display like this. And here in the text ID field, we're going to specify the text for the alert key. And then we can optionally specify a key event and some queue information down below. For the action specification, what we're going to do here is, in this case, we're going to say display at desk. So we do want to generate the alert, and then we're going to reword it, as you can see down towards the middle. We say, whoa, this is a different reworded alert, /n, which means new line should be in the display. So what's going to happen is we're going to generate that to the alerts display. Now, alarm rules are exceptions or messages that are generated by MainView Alarm Manager, which is out there monitoring metrics in the MainView ecosystem, depending on what you've told it that you want it to monitor. So let's take an example of this. Let's say that we're looking at locking in CICS, and we have an alarm set up to generate an alert anytime that you have a deadlock lasting more than 30 seconds. And there are things you may want to do with it. Maybe you want to send an email, maybe you want to cancel the transaction, maybe just write a message to the console. You can take any of the actions you normally would take in AutoOperator. So let's walk through this. So we're going to have an alarm type of an event, and we're going to give it the alarm ID, which is something that's specified in the alarm definition itself. And in this case, we're looking for MVA locks. Next, we'll see the panel for the action specifications for the alarm event. And in this instance, all we want to do is run an exec, which you can see there. It's RDC GXR A1. And that's all we need to do for our alarm event in this example. So now let's take a look at variable events. And variable events can be very useful for creating more complex automated solutions without having to invoke execs. So what we can do with the variable events is we specify the variable name, of course, that we want to monitor, and then we can say whether we want that rule to fire when we create the variable, delete the variable, or update the variable. Okay, now we're going to show you what these screens look like. So we're going to have an example of when to fire when the add count is equal to 3. Okay, so in our selection criteria, first thing we need to do is specify the variable name, and in this case it's abend underscore count, and we want to fire the rule whenever that variable is updated. On the variable dependency screen, we're going to specify abend underscore count, and then we're going to say if it's equal to 3, so that's setting whether this rule should fire if it's equal to 3. And then if it does fire, we want to write a message to the journal as indicated under the issue message JRN field. Now we can also specify time rules, and time rules are set to fire at certain times a day or after some period of time. We also have a special time called at start, which says we want to fire the rule whenever AutoOperator starts up. Okay, and we're going to show you some examples of how this works. So in the selection criteria for the time events, what we do is we specify a start time. So when should this rule start being considered for execution? Then we can specify a frequency. So at what intervals do we want to issue this or execute this rule? Meaning you may want to do certain displays every hour. This is a good way to accomplish that. And you can optionally specify a stop time or the number of times you want the rule to execute before it stops. We can also specify alert specifications. So here in this case, all we want to do is a D space A. So we're going to specify that in the command field. AutoOperator can also handle events from external sources that are non-standard. So things, for instance, that are not WTOs, time, alert, variable commands, or things coming from CICS DB2 IMSMQ. Typically, external events are coming from third-party software or for something that was built in-house, and it doesn't generate a WTO that we can trap with AutoOperator. So we do have a way to get around this. And what we do is in the software that's generating the data stream, we would specify a subsys equals SSID in the JCL. And the reason we do that is so that that data gets sent to the subsystem ring and AutoOperator can pull it down from there. So for an external event in the selection criterion, we specify the text ID of the message that we want to trap. And in this case, we're going to execute an exec QAO list v to list variables. And here's an example of the modification to the JCL. And you can see on line 1000, we've changed sysut2 to point to a subsystem. So all of the data that gets pulled in and transferred over by IEB Gener will be exposed to AutoOperator as an external event. AutoOperator also can handle multi-line WTOs. And a multi-line WTO is, of course, a WTO that spans more than one line, such as you'll see for a lot of system display commands. Now, normal event type message rules can only see the first line, so there's special consideration needs to be given to multi-line WTOs. The rule can copy the entire message to the journal, so it can get the whole thing. It's just you can't process it independently. Now do be aware that some DB control messages will have hex characters, and that can impact your processing as well. So here's an example of a log message that we may want to process. So process multi-line WTOs in a rule. In the selection field, you'll have a couple different things. You can specify all, which says I want you to pull down the entire multi-line message, and then I want you to parse it by line and then within the lines by words. Or you can specify single, which treats all the minor lines as a single object. So here's how we would put it into the selection criteria. First, we specify the text ID, IEE115I, and then down at the bottom, we specify how we want to handle the multi-line WTO. And in this case, we say all, so we'll break down the lines and the words within the lines. So here you can see the variable dependencies we have referenced in those values. First thing we do is we check to see if Tom is active, which is a total object manager, manager IPLs, and started tasks. So we check to see if Tom isn't active. If he isn't, then we parse the message that we got in. We look at word 4, and then we look to see if it says MV at pound Tom not found. And if that's true, then we take the action. If it isn't, then we skip it. So if it is true, what we're going to do here, you can see in the command field, is we're going to start MV Tom, and then we're also going to write a message to the journal indicating that Tom wasn't found and we're issuing a start from the rule. AutoOperator also supports end-of-step rules, and an end-of-step rule is whenever an address space changes steps, it captures some information. And we do propagate or populate a few different variables. I'm not going to go through all of these, but they are documented in the AutoOperator documentation. So if I want to capture an end of step, I can specify it by specifying the step name, and then I specify the job name and optionally the type of the job. You certainly want to specify a step name and a job name at a minimum. And then the action specifications for the end of step event, you can cancel the job by putting a yes in there, or you can optionally issue an exec or a command, or maybe issue a different type of message, whatever your processing needs are for that particular event. AutoOperator also processes end-of-memory events. And an end-of-memory event is any time that a started task or an address space gets stopped, canceled, or abeds. Okay, so a variable we can check is IMF term type. It's IMF TERMT, which will either be normal or abnormal. Now that can be a little inconsistent. If what you're canceling has good error recovery code in it, then it may terminate normal, even though it abends. So you need to be careful and understand the behavior of the address spaces that you're monitoring. So here's what the selection criteria looks like. We specify the name of our job and then the type of the job, and we can also specify the type of termination, whether it's abnormal or normal. Now, another thing that's important to consider with your rules is the criteria match rate. And the criteria match rate keeps your automation from running out of control. And we're essentially telling it, look, we can only have X number of matches and Y number of seconds. And when that occurs, then I can tell you to either take no actions, you can fire the rule but don't do anything, you can suspend the rule for a period of time, or you can disable the rule until somebody manually re-enables it. And the reason you want to do this is to keep the automation from perhaps feeding on itself and going into a loop, which is a risk you run when you're implementing new automation. So it's a good practice to also always specify some values for the criteria match rate. And this is where it's specified. You'll see this in the first panel of any rule that you generate. And here you just specify how many times it must match and X number, Y number of seconds before you do some disable or suspend type of action. This concludes MVAO 201 Part 3.